Welcome to our tutorial on how to lay out and score a grid on diagonal. Overview of what we're going to do is we're going to make a center line, a second center line, a takeoff line, and then we're going to line up two cuts to go right in the center of where we want it to and use our template to go from there. Now note these bottom three directions are equal. So finding center line 1, we're going to measure one way, divide it by 2, and make a mark. And then we're going to measure the exact same distance from the other mark. Now this will offset minor errors in your division and double check your mark. It's not uncommon when I do this to have it, a quarter or 3/8 of an inch between the two marks, and if I split the difference there, I know I'm straight. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side of the slab. Obviously, to have a straight line, we have to have two marks to intersect. And we're going to snap that off. So we're going to take a chalk line between the checks on one side and the two checks on the other side, and then snap a line, and we ought to have two identical rectangles. Now we're going to do the same thing going the other way. So we'll have a perpendicular line, and these will be our takeoff lines. And we should end up now with 4 equal rectangles. You'll want to take a framing square and double check. You can use the good old Pythagorean triple of 3, 4, 5, meaning that you'll have a triangle that's 3, 4, and 5, but a framing square is adequate. It's not uncommon for slabs to be less than perfectly square. I always say that concrete placement guys are like framers, decorative concrete guys are like trim carpenters, so we tend to be a little bit tighter with our measurements, and so sometimes we'll have to mitigate that. But next thing is going to be we're going to make that takeoff line, and that's going to be how we're going to find our 45 and make it so it intersects in the center of the slab. So it's a line parallel to the one of the square center lines, and we want to make it as far away as possible without being more than half of the width of the slab. So the reason for that is if we're 16th or an 1/8 inch off in our measurements, we want to not extrapolate that on a long line over a short distance. I don't know if that makes any sense, but in any event, we want to burn a foot or burn 10 inches using a mark on the tape rather than the end because it tends to be more accurate. But you got to keep your head on straight when you're doing that. Parallel lines are obviously made by measuring and marking the same distance from two ends of any one line and making a line out of chalk there. So we're going to measure the distance between the square line and the takeoff line and make a T to make a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And we'll look at the overview again as we get towards the end here. So you may need to shift the whole layout down to end up with large triangles. Small triangles will show up imperfections. So you just want to make sure that the end of the grid on diagonal is like 1/3 of the distance there. Your first cut, let's just skip ahead to the overview here. Again, remember we've got the center line, we've got the other center line, we've got the takeoff line, and we've got these two first and second cuts. Note that the directions are equal. These are the little 45, 45, 90s that you have going on here. So when we make that first score line, you're going to want to have that third person stand in the middle and tell you left or right to make sure that you're right on the center there, that you're on your mark, and then make your second score line going the other way. Before you cut it, obviously, you want to make sure that they're intersecting perfectly and that that we're square and then we're hitting right in the middle there, and that the little 8 segments that you generate should be all equal. Before you're going to use a saw, you're going to put your safety gear on. You may have a hard hat on if there's nothing going overhead. OSHA says you don't need to do it. Make sure you have safety glasses, long sleeve shirt, earplugs, dust mask, knee pads, and then taping the electrical connections will keep it from hooking on the anchor bolts and coming apart, and will keep water out of it if you're using water. Wearing gloves is always a good idea. You're going to line up the template so that the center of the saw blade is on the chalk line and the end of the template matches up with the offset of the saw. So in this case with that saw state, it's 1.5 inches. Depends on what kind of saw skate you're using. You just want to make sure that that template is parallel with the line. You're going to cut the line. You want to start off with 2 hands. You want to keep that skate tight against your template. Your left hand should hold the center of the saw tight against it. Now, it's key to think of this differently than when you're cutting wood. you're actually grinding. Diamond blades don't cut, they grind a strip away of material. And you want to look through the segments of that spinning blade to watch your own line being formed so that you can cut it as shallow as possible but still get the full width of the blade. And you want to adjust your speed and pressure to sneak up on that. The blade depth must be deep enough to get the low spots of the slab so the skate doesn't high center you. You want to make sure that that works. Feel with your right hand what is square and tight and just make sure it all makes sense. Strong arm steady. Flex that brachioradii or whatever that muscle's called and keep that thing tight. Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance says if you've got bad ideas, you'll build them into your sculpture. You want to keep your mind clear, focus on the work, and make smooth, straight cuts. This is fun stuff to do. So, like if we do this really right, your great-grandchildren might see what you did there, so just be precise and show some craftsmanship. You want to make sure that you pick up the saw cleanly as you finish the cut, or some guys like to turn it on the side. Be conscious of the cord. The anchor bolts, man, they want to grab that thing. We start to go faster after we make that cut because we can use the template. And the sequence of photos was taken, gosh, I want to say like 2009 or something. We've got a much better system now, but it's still the same fundamentals where the template itself generates the offset. So when you continue, you're going to line up the other things. This little thing was filmed without proper safety equipment, so take it with a grain of salt. It's actually a lot easier to do that with proper knee pads on. Shame on us. Okay, make sure to check your work as you go. That should be dead square, should be straight, should be truly 45 on the slab. There is no sort of square. There's square or not square. Make it square. Appreciate you watching.